Good Wednesday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for October the 4th. Today, we are reading together in 2 Kings chapter 19, which is going to be Hezekiah's response to the boisterous claims of the Rabshakeh, the spokesman for the king of Assyria, Sennacherib. Rabshakeh has come up against Jerusalem. He's talked a big game, and he has made a very vital mistake. However, he has blasphemed against the name of Yahweh, and as you can imagine, Yahweh's not going to just let that go by without addressing this mistake of his. So let's read that together here in 2 Kings chapter 19. How is Hezekiah going to respond to what he has observed from the Assyrian spokesman? Well, we're going to note that here in 2 Kings chapter 19, beginning of verse number 1. Second Kings chapter 19, verse number 1. When King Hezekiah heard their report, he tore his clothes, covered himself with sackcloth, and went into Yahweh's temple. He sent Eliakim, who was in charge of the palace, Shebna, the court secretary, and the leading priest, who were covered with sackcloth, to the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz. They said to him, "This is what Hezekiah says. Today is a day of distress, rebuke, and disgrace, for the children have come to the point of birth, but there is no strength to deliver them. Perhaps Yahweh your God will hear all the words of the royal spokesman, whom his master the king of Assyria sent to mock the living God, and will rebuke him for the words that Yahweh your God has heard. Therefore offer a prayer for the surviving remnants." So the servants of King Hezekiah went to Isaiah, who said to them, "Tell your master, Yahweh says this, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid because of the words you have heard, with which the king of Assyria's attendants have blasphemed me. I'm about to put a spirit in him, and he will hear a rumor and return to his own land, where I will cause him to fall by the sword." When the royal spokesman, the Rabshakeh, heard that the king of Assyria had pulled out of Lachish, he left and found him fighting against Libnah. The king had heard concerning King Tirhakah of Cush. "Look, he has set out to fight against you." So he again sent messengers to King Hezekiah, saying, say this to King Hezekiah of Judah: "Don't let your God, on whom you rely, deceive you by promising that Jerusalem will not be handed over to the king of Assyria. Look, you have heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all these countries. They completely destroyed them. Will you be rescued? Did the gods and the nations that my predecessors destroyed rescue them? Nations such as Gozan, Haran, Rezeph, and the Edenites in Telassar? Where is the king of Hamath, the king of Arpad, the king of the city of Sepharvaim, Hena, or Eva?" Hezekiah took the letter from the messenger's hands, read it, and then went up to Yahweh's temple and spread the letter out before Yahweh. Then Hezekiah prayed before Yahweh: "Yahweh God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you are God, you alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth. You made the heavens and the earth. Listen closely, Yahweh, and hear. Open your eyes, Yahweh, and see. Hear the words that Sennacherib has sent to mock the living God. Yahweh, it is true that the kings of Assyria have devastated the nations and their lands. They have thrown their gods into the fire, for they were not gods, but made by human hands, wood and stone. So they have destroyed them. Now, Yahweh, our God, please save us from his power, so that all the kings of the earth may know that you, Yahweh, are God, you alone." Then Isaiah, son of Amoz, sent a message to Hezekiah: "Yahweh, the God of Israel, says, I have heard your prayer to me about King Sennacherib of Assyria. This is the word Yahweh has spoken against him. Virgin daughter Zion despises you and scorns you. Daughter Jerusalem shakes her head behind your back. Who is it you have mocked and blasphemed? Against whom have you raised your voice and lifted your eyes in pride? Against the Holy One of Israel. You have mocked Yahweh, or you have mocked the Lord, through your messengers. You have said, with my many chariots, I have gone up to the heights of the mountains, to the far recesses of Lebanon. I cut down its tallest cedars, its choice cypress trees. I came to its farthest outposts, its densest forest. I dug wells and drank water in foreign lands. I dried up all the streams of Egypt with the soles of my feet. Have you not heard? I designed it long ago. I planned it in days gone by. I have now brought it to pass, and you have crushed fortified cities into piles of rubble. Their inhabitants have become powerless, dismayed, and ashamed. They are plants of the field, tender grass, grass on the rooftops blasted by the east wind. But I know you're sitting down. You're going out and you're coming in, and you're raging against me. Because you're raging against me and your arrogance, I have reached my ears. I will put my hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth. I will make you go back the way you came. This will be the sign for you. This year, you will eat. I believe this is him speaking out of Hezekiah. This will be the sign for you this year. You will eat what grows on its own. And in the second year, what grows from that. But in the third year, sow and reap, plant vineyards and eat their fruit. The surviving remnant of the house of Judah will again take root downward and bear fruit upward. For the remnant will go out from Jerusalem and survivors from Mount Zion. The zeal of Yahweh of armies will accomplish this. Therefore, this is what Yahweh says about the king of Assyria. He will not enter this city. Shoot an arrow here. Come before it with a shield, or build up a siege ramp against it. He will go back the way he came, and he will not enter this city. This is Yahweh's declaration. I will defend this city and rescue it for my sake and for the sake of my servant David. That night, the angel of Yahweh went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. So King Sennacherib of Assyria broke camp and left. He returned home and lived in Nineveh. One day, this is about 20 years later, one day while he was worshiping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adramelech and Sharezer struck him down with a sword and escaped to the land of Ararat. Then his son Esar-Haddon became king in his place. And that is 2 Kings chapter 19, Hezekiah's response to the taunting threats of the Rabshakeh, the spokesman of Sennacherib, king of Assyria. Whenever he hears these threats, he takes them seriously. That's exemplified by the fact that he tore his clothes. He covered himself in sackcloth. But notice what he does. He does not wallow in his fear. He does not wallow in any sort of self-pity. No, instead he goes to Yahweh. He commands all the people to behave in such a way that Yahweh will see their distress. But what he wants, though, is for Yahweh, or is to hear Yahweh's response to this, which is why he reaches out to Isaiah. He knows that Isaiah is a prophet of God. He knows he's a spokesman for God, and he wants to know, what does God think about this? So he goes to Isaiah and says, these are the things that are taking place. Listen, it is as if a woman is in the process of giving birth. She's in labor, and it's just about time for the baby to be birthed into this world, but she has no strength to actually push the baby out. We have resisted for this long. We have stood strong, but we don't know if we can do it on our own, which we don't think we can do it on our own. We're running out of steam. We turn to Yahweh, recognizing he is the only one who can deliver us. Hopefully, he hears what has been said. Hopefully, he knows the way the Rabshakeh has spoken against him, how he has mocked him, how he has blasphemed him. And hopefully, Yahweh will have words of rebuke against the Rabshakeh, that he will deliver this remaining remnant. So the servants of Hezekiah, they go to Isaiah, and they share with him everything that Hezekiah has said. And then Isaiah sends back a message and tells him, this is what Yahweh says: don't be afraid of what you've heard. I know about the blasphemings. Don't you worry. I heard what he said, and I took it personally. That's, I believe, the understanding we should take away from Yahweh's words. I heard what he said, and I'm taking it personal. This is a personal matter to me. and I will take care of this issue. And the first way he's going to do it is by causing Sennacherib to hear a rumor of something going on elsewhere, and that's going to cause him to leave. And eventually, once he goes back to Nineveh, he's going to die there. So they take off. The royal spokesman hears that Sennacherib has gone off to battle somewhere else. From Lachish he goes, because he had heard, the king did, Sennacherib had heard that the king of Egypt, Tirhakah, that he had sent a contingent to fight against Assyria. But this ends up coming to nothing, that this threat ends up being defeated. And but in the meantime, while he is dealing with this threat, and while the Rabshakeh, the spokesman, has gone away as well, they don't want Israel to, or they don't want Judah to think that they're delivered. So he ends up actually sending a long distance intimidation through the form of messengers, probably a letter, and he basically restates what was said back in chapter 17 verses 32 through 35 of, don't let your God tell you, don't think that your God is going to deliver you. Don't let him tell you that you're going to survive this. None of the other gods preserve their people, and your God will be the same. Again, all he is doing is continuing to rile up Yahweh, hearing these continued mockings, hearing these continued blasphemies, and really at the end of the day, it's just not going to turn out very well for the Assyrians for the way that they've spoken against Yahweh. Well, Hezekiah then takes this letter, and he's again distraught by it, and goes to the temple, to the area in the temple to which he can go as just a non-priestly male, and he takes the letter and he just lays it out. He just lays it out before Yahweh. He literally opens it up and spreads it out before Yahweh and prays to Yahweh. And he begins this prayer by exalting Yahweh, recognizing him as the one true living God, and recognizing that this reality is what separates Yahweh's people and the nation of Judah from the previous, or from the nations that Assyria has previously defeated, because they just had idols made of stone and wood that were not, that had no power in and of themselves. And Hezekiah says, no, of course they're going to be able to defeat them. They were destroyed because they're helpless, but that's not the same for us. We are different because we serve the one true living God. Again, the one who made the heavens and the earth. Please, all powerful, almighty God, please save us from the Assyrians. And in doing so, let all the kingdoms of the earth know that you alone are the one true living God. You alone are Yahweh, the one true living God. So Isaiah then, or Yahweh, responds through the prophet Isaiah to Hezekiah, and he says, I have heard your prayer. How powerful prayer is, that Yahweh heard the prayer of Hezekiah and responded specifically to it through the prophets. He says, this is the word that Yahweh has spoken against Sennacherib, the king of Assyria. He says, virgin daughter Zion, one who has never been penetrated, one whose defenses have never been shaken to this point. She despises you, Sennacherib. She scorns you, Sennacherib. She shakes her head at you, Sennacherib. And you got to think Sennacherib's thinking, well, how dare she do that? How dare she mock me in this way? But here's what Yahweh says. Who is it that you're mocking and blaspheming? Who is it that you've raised your voice against? Who have you lifted your eyes in pride? Is it not the Holy One of Israel? This is the answer to chapter 17, 32 through 35. This is the answer here within this chapter to verses 1 through 13. You have mocked Yahweh through your messengers. You said, look at everything that I've done. Look at everybody that I've conquered. Look at everything that I've accomplished. But don't you know? Don't you know, Rabshakeh? Don't you know, Sennacherib? Don't you know that I designed this long ago? That I planned it in days gone by? That I have now brought it to pass? Yeah, sure, you've done these things, but you've only done these things because I have sovereignly decreed that you would do these things. Because here's the thing, Rabshakeh. Here's the thing, Sennacherib. I know you're sitting down. I know you're going out. I know you're coming in. I know you're raging against me. And because all of this arrogance and pride has reached my ears, I am going to put a hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth, and I'm going to send your tails back the same way that you came. I, God, am sovereign. I, God, am all-knowing. I, God, the Yahweh, God of Israel, I am all-powerful. Hear these words, Sennacherib. Hear these words, Rabshakeh, and know that I am the one who is in control. What a powerful, powerful speech that Yahweh ends up delivering to Sennacherib. But here's now some confidence for Hezekiah. Again, I think this is verse 29. This is how Hezekiah will know that this is going to come to pass. In this year, that year while they were under siege, you will eat what grows on stones. Remember, they're not able to sow and harvest like they normally would. They've been under siege. So because of this agricultural disaster of siege, here is God saying, I'm going to provide for you anyways. So this year you're going to eat whatever grows on its own. Next year, you're going to eat from whatever grows from that. But in that third year, you're going to be free. You're going to be out from underneath the thumb of oppression, and you are going to be able to sow and reap, plant vineyards and eat their fruit. Basically, the remnant would survive this disaster. You will be delivered from this. The metaphor here is that the house of Judah will again take root downward and bear fruit upward. The remnants will go out from Zion or from Jerusalem, and survivors from Mount Zion. The zeal of Yahweh of armies will accomplish this. It is Yahweh's passionate desire for his people that will cause this to take place. Therefore, here's what he says about the king of Assyria, about Sennacherib, that he will not enter the city. He will not shoot an arrow there. He will not become before it with shields. He will not build up a siege trap against it. He is all bark and no bite. He will go back the way that he came. He will not enter this city. This is Yahweh's declaration, and I, Yahweh, am doing this for my honor, for my name's sake, but also notice this, for the sake of my servant David. Remember, Yahweh has made incredible promises to the household of David, and that's what Judah is. Judah is the remnant of David, and Yahweh's going to preserve it. He's not going to let his precious chosen people be destroyed here, at least at this point. Hezekiah is a good king. He's done great things, and he is going to honor Hezekiah for his faithfulness in this way. Jerusalem will be delivered from Assyria in this moment, Hezekiah. Don't you fear. You will see the sign, and you will know that this will surely happen. So how does Yahweh accomplish this? Remember, this chapter, chapter 19, is probably taking place over at least the span of days, if not the span of some weeks. So Hezekiah and Rabshakeh, they were there. They have their speeches. Yahweh sends the rumor, sends the hearing of the rumor. They go fight, and it seems that they've come back now. They've set up shop again. But that night, the angel of Yahweh went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. 185,000. I can't remember what it was I was reading or listening to, but it might be some historical account says that there were rats that came in and ate everybody, just attacked the whole camp. I don't know, maybe that's the way the angel of Yahweh worked in this instance. But think about that. Think about the miraculous nature even of that sort of thing, that rats or field mice would take out 185,000. Certainly, this is the hand of Yahweh at work. So whenever everybody gets up, they see all the dead bodies, and King Sennacherib says, nope, we're out. So he breaks camp, leaves, he returns to Nineveh, and again, about 20 years later, two of his sons end up striking him down. There's a couple of different ideas behind what this was. One might be that he had anointed his son Esar-Haddon as the next king. So the other sons were upset. But there's actually a Jewish tradition, and it's just a tradition. It might be true, it might not be true, that he had actually, because of the way that Jerusalem had been able to repel him, he was very fascinated by the Jewish religion and did some research into it and found out about the story of Abraham and Isaac. And he thought, If Abraham was blessed by their God, by Yahweh, so greatly for being willing to offer his sons, and maybe if I offer two of my sons, or maybe just one at least, but maybe two of them, then I will have the same blessings. Well, they found out about that, again, according to Jewish tradition. Again, may or may not be true, and they actually end up killing him for that reason. So between those two stories, maybe one of them is true, maybe neither one of them are true, but all we know is that Yahweh's words did come to pass. He returned and he died there. Why? Well, because of pride, because of arrogance, because he thought he was the hammer. But in reality, Sennacherib and Assyria were nothing but the nail. Yahweh is the hammer. He accomplishes what he wills and what he desires, and no one can stand against that. What an incredible story we have here in 2 Kings chapter 19, which is repeated elsewhere. I believe it's repeated towards the latter portion of the first half of Isaiah. I think chapters 30 through 39 have some discussion on this particular story. Just incredible here to see Yahweh defending his people, but all that being predicated on Hezekiah, his faithfulness, his trust in Yahweh, his willingness to bare his soul to him in prayer, knowing that the only way they would make it through is if Yahweh blessed them in such a way. So he offers up this prayer, and Yahweh responds to it in kind. If you have any questions or comments about this text, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. And I appreciate you taking some time to read along with me today on this Wednesday as we're looking here in 2 Kings. Tomorrow, we're going to be reading chapters 20 and 21 together. I hope that you'll be able to join me for that as well, and hope that we'll be able to see many of our church family tonight for our Bible classes beginning at 7 p.m. Hope to see you there. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Take care, and God bless.